Next, we will take a look at the event, which is again one of the BPMN 2.0 element, one of the main important elements actually. So an event, what is it? An event is a happening, more like an incident, that happens within the course of the process or is in fact termed as choreography. It surely affects the process or the outcome of a process and has attached with it a cause or trigger of why the event has happened in the first place. And then it also has an effect or an impact overall on the working of the process. Event in general belongs to these three different categories, which is start event, intermediate event and end event. As you might notice, event in general is represented by open circles. There is a circle here, here as well as here. So open circles with a sign marked at the epicenter of the circle that differentiates what type of event is represented by the notation. So normally there is start event, and then at the epicenter of the event there is a sign or symbol which says what type of start event we are referring to in the process diagram. Similarly, at the epicenter of intermediate event also there is going to be a sign or symbol which says what is the use of that event or what type of event that is in the intermediate events. Same applies for end event also. So event in general is represented by open circles with a sign marked at the epicenter of the circle that differentiates what type of event is represented by the notation. Generally, there are three types of events, namely start event, intermediate event and end event. So in the following class, we are going to see what is the nature of these events. We will take start events. There are different types of start events. We will start defining each of them. And then there are a set of intermediate events and then end event. So we will see in detail what they are. So start events. With delimiters shown in the event circle, the start event can be any one of the following. There is a non-start event, then there is message start event, then there is timer start event, conditional start event, signal start event, multi-start event, parallel multi-start, etc. So we are going to see what each of them really means. A non-start event is used for sub-process and can be used in an embedded fashion or in a called fashion. That is non-start event. A message start event, which is here, is any event that is started by a message. As a result of the message, a new process is triggered and the rest of the process is directed by the sequential flow. Message start events can be interrupting as well as non-interrupting, as the name suggests. If it is interrupting, the flow of control will be directed towards it or away from it. If it is non-interrupting, chances are the event might take place in parallel to the sequential flow or the usual flow of the process. So that is about message events. Then we have timer event. Timer event happens as a result of timer action, more like keeping a timer in such a way that once the set time elapses, the action follows through. It may also be interrupting as well as non-interrupting, as was explained previously. So a timer start event is similar to keeping a timer. And let's say in the case of pizza order, we are ordering the pizza or food to eat, and then we keep a timer for 30 seconds. We say if the pizza comes before 30 seconds, we are going to eat the pizza. That is the action. If the pizza is not coming in 30 seconds, that is if the timer has elapsed 30 seconds and the pizza is not coming, we will cancel the order. So that is the next action. So in situations like this, we use the timer actually. Timer event. Next is conditional event. Conditional event happens as a result of a condition and waits for the condition to be true to follow the path of the sequential flow, or wait until a default flow may be in the follow through. So conditional events are again interrupting and non-interrupting, and it is there is a symbol at the epicenter of the circle, which is a note which says it is a conditional event. Next is signal event. Signal event happens as a result of a general signal which may prompt the process to react to such a signal. If it reacts, it may invoke a sequential flow or the process flow. It may also be interrupting or non-interrupting. So what is a signal event? So a signal event, if you really see, it has at its epicenter, there is a triangle. That is what is placed at the epicenter. So that means it's a signal event. And signal event, normally what happens is that when the event happens, the system may respond to the event. An example is that if there is an advertisement going on in the TV, and based on the advertisement, if one of the spectators respond to the advertisement, then that event happens to be a signal event. More like maybe an ad for food or a pizza in that case goes, and then the respondent or the spectator actually calls the pizza shop to order a pizza. That means the system has responded to the event, and such events are called signal event, and it can be interrupting or non-interrupting in nature. Next is multi-start event. Multi-start event only mean there are multiple ways of triggering the process. However, only one of the multi-start event is required. So multi-start event, it can also be interrupting or non-interrupting. And multi-start event, there may be many events which may be there for a task or process to jumpstart. But only one event is required for triggering the process. Those events are then said to be called as multi-start event. It can be interrupting or non-interrupting. Then we have parallel multiple events, which means there are multiple events required to trigger a process. It can be interrupting or non-interrupting. So the main difference between multi-start event and parallel multiple event is that in multi-start event, even though there are a lot of events which may trigger a task, only one event is required to trigger a task. Whereas in the case of parallel multiple events, there are a lot of events which can trigger a process, and all those events are required to trigger a process. Only one of the event is not going to trigger the process. We need all the events which would trigger that process. So parallel multiple events can also be interrupting or non-interrupting. Next we come to intermediate event. Intermediate event is the same event type that is discussed in the start event. Only difference is that an intermediate event may be thrown by a conductor who owns a lane or by a process in a different pool, which in usual terms may get caught by the same event type whenever it is indicated in the process diagram. So there is definitely a side effect. So the main difference in this intermediate event is that there is a throw and catch mechanism in place. So let's say in an order fulfillment process, if a customer places an order, customer is set to throw an event which says fill the order. That is the event. Now once the order fulfillment goes through and the good is delivered to the customer, there is a event which says delivered the good, which will be caught by the customer and then he gets the goods. So there's a throw and catch mechanism in the case of intermediate events. So there is definitely a side effect that may be associated with this mechanism. For example, order pizza can be an intermediate message event that is thrown by the customer, and deliver pizza may be an intermediate event that is again caught by the same customer after a lapse of time required for cooking pizza and delivery. All the other types are similar to the way the start event also works. Only difference is that start event actually triggers a process or a task, whereas intermediate event happens in between start event and end event. Next is end event. End event signals end of the process and may be message, signal, escalation, or compensation. Now let us see what is escalation and what is compensation. Escalation means there is a communication going on or is in place between a parent and the sub-process resulting from the parent process. So that is escalation. Compensation means there is cancellation of tasks or activities within the process defined well within a pool. So let's say there is an event based upon which we actually book tickets to a cinema hall. Now let's say there is another event which happens, which actually is the fact that a friend is not coming with you to go to the cinema hall and watch the cinema. So that event has prompted you to cancel the booking of cinema hall. Okay, so that event has prompted you to cancel the ticket which you have booked in the cinema hall. So that's a cancellation event. So any cancellation of tasks or activities within a process is defined as compensation. Throwing compensation only affects generally the tasks mentioned within a pool or lanes within a pool. So this sums up the events.